Well. Good morning, church. How y'all doing? You good? It's good to be here. Good to be back. For those of you that are visiting with us, those of you that have not been here maybe in a while and you're wondering what is going on, they keep talking about this Reveal Sunday. A couple of weeks ago, our good friends from World Vision were here, and one of our good friends, Miss Wandy, is still here with us this morning. But we had a chosen event, and today is Reveal Sunday. You're going to get to hear more about that this morning. My son Asher and I got back on Tuesday from 10 days in Zimbabwe, Africa. And this morning we are going to do a little Q&A. So I'm going to invite Asher to come on up and join me this morning. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. He's a little shy of stage and people, but go ahead and take a seat. This morning, I think that it's super important as a church to understand that one, when you talk about the church, it is not these four walls. It's not this building. We say it all the time, but the church is you and me. It's wherever we go. Church is not defined by a location. The church is not defined by anything other than its people. And I think that as a church, as long as I am the pastor, I'm going to provide opportunities for us to be the church, to be the hands and feet of Jesus, wherever we are, whatever we're doing, in many different forms and fashions, whether it's serving the homeless in our community down at Cub, whether it is an in-house event such as Rebel U or some form of discipleship, whether it is across the world through World Vision, we are always going to provide opportunity for you to be the hands and feet of Jesus, because that is in fact where Jesus meets us. When we step in faith in any situation, that's where Jesus meets us. And we had plenty of opportunity over the last few weeks to see and witness God working through the local church across the globe. And so this morning, I just wanted to start off. We've got a video that kind of gives you an understanding of the impact of Chosen and what Reveal means. So if we go ahead and show that real quick.
You allowed love and light to invade the darkness, and heaven came to earth. Sponsorship is such a beautiful program, but it has always been in the hands of the sponsor. The decision and the choice has always been in the sponsor choosing the child, and said, no, we're going to put the choice into the hands of a child. This is what the gospel looks like. You put the motion of choice into the hands of a child. You lived out the power of the gospel of God as you put the empowerment and the choice into the hands of a child.
I can never forget those beautiful eyes going over right and left, looking for people they wanted as their friend. Chosen is truly amazing ministry.
Coming not as the one who's going to save them, but as the one who's going to learn from them and to serve them.
And my prayer is that your heart is stirred by God today to step into a relationship with a child, and that relationship changes everything.
So that's what it's all about. You can clap if you want. We're in church. It's okay to clap. That's powerful stuff. And I know many of you are maybe wondering, and just so you have an understanding, World Vision is the largest humanitarian organization, or one of the largest. I don't know if it's the largest, but it is, was that? Largest Christian humanitarian organization I think in 209 different countries, something like that. But what they do is transformational work within communities, and that's what Asher and I got to witness. But many of you are familiar with child sponsorship through many different organizations. But a few years back, World Vision flipped the script when it came to sponsoring children, and in fact gave children the opportunity, as you witnessed there 2 weeks ago. A lot of you registered 2 years ago. A lot of you registered 4 years ago. A lot of you registered and said, "I want to be chosen." And what that is taking those pictures across the globe and putting them in front of children who don't have any choices in life. They don't get to choose what they eat. They don't get to choose what they wear. They don't get to choose when they wake up. They don't get to choose where they go to school. They don't get to choose very much at all. But what World Vision did was put the power to choose in the child's hands. And for many children, that's the only choice of any significance in their life up until that point that they get to make. And it's amazing to be there and to experience it. And so that's what we're doing this morning. This morning, all of you guys who signed up to be chosen, sitting out in the lobby are your envelopes with the child that chose you. I know that God is done some amazing things in orchestrating which child chose you, whether it's their name, whether it's their interests, whether it's what they look like, whether it's the reason why they chose you. I know God, for the child that chose us, just lined up some very specific stuff that just was kind of like a wink from heaven going, you did good. You're on the right track. You made a good choice. And so this morning, as we kind of take the next few minutes, we're going to answer some questions. Some of you guys submitted them. Some of you did not. And so we came up with some questions that we thought would explain the experience. And so Asher, I'll ask you the first one. And you can just kind of answer, however you see fit. But it says, what was the most impactful moment for you during the chosen event in Zimbabwe? So specifically, as we rolled up into Zimbabwe, kind of our first experience was traveling to the chosen event that World Vision had set up. So specifically in that chosen event moment, that day, kind of what was the most impactful thing for you?
So like the chosen event?
Yeah, just at that chosen event.
I'd say what left the biggest impact on me was, I think whenever we had eventually met our sponsored child, I think at first, because they have this time where you get to go after the child chooses you. Since we were there, we could actually go sit down and kind of talk with the child, and like my dad brought gifts and stuff, so we had that moment to connect to them, face to face. And I think at first there was a little bit of awkwardness because it was just something like new for me, something new for the child, something new for the child's mother. And of course there was the language barrier, so we had to speak through a translator. And because of that, there was just kind of like this, there was obviously just a little bit of a disconnect. But further on, like after my dad had gifted our kid's name is Michaela, by the way, so I'm just going to use her name so it's easier. After he had gifted a ball to Michaela, I had the idea. I was like, oh, I'll play catch with her. And at first, I didn't even think of it like this at first. I was just like, yeah, it would be nice to play catch with her. But as we started to play catch, slowly, her shy, kind of reserved demeanor, it kind of shed a little bit. And slowly she had a smile on her face. But after 2 minutes, she was just really happy. And it kind of just reminded me, even though that barrier was there of like being from two completely separate places in the world, like a barrier of we don't like understand each other through language, there's still that human connection of just like, I guess just playing together. And I thought that was really cool. And that's what left an impact on me, how that human connection doesn't go away just because, you know, of circumstance or like how different and varying y'all's lives are. There's still that connection that's always there.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really cool moment for me as a dad as well, to kind of watch that transpire. I think, you know, the impactful moment during the Chosen event for me is just, you know, one, World Vision just does everything that they do is done with excellence, right? So when you walk up, I don't know, there's a video of us kind of walking up to the Chosen event. And you can kind of see, like, that's all of the families there of the children that are kind of being chosen. They got tents set up, you know, they kind of got all sorts of stuff set up there as well. And for us, it's just kind of like, yeah, of course. But, you know, it's impactful for me because the way that they value children at those events, those children are celebrated. Like, the families are brought in. You know, anytime you're dealing, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, anytime you're dealing with benevolence, with needing to give something, or I need something, I can't, you know, my kid needs this, it's always kind of like, you know, there's a tension there. But what World Vision does so well is they celebrate those families, they celebrate those kids, they value them. Everything is done with excellence. So whether those kids know it or not, they're experiencing something, you know, that they've never experienced, but it's done with such a high level of excellence that those kids, you know, not only are they coming to this amazing thing, but they see what excellence looks like. They see what it means to be valued. So it was really, really cool, not only to see that, but just to see how, you know, people from all different walks of life came together to make that event so special for those kids and for those families. And so, second question, Ash, can you share a story about someone you met who inspired you during the trip? Somebody that you met who inspired you during the trip. And if you want to think about it, I can answer.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to. I didn't think about it.
Yeah, think about it. For me, the way the World Vision works, obviously you have World Vision U.S. staff. Wandy is part of World Vision U.S. staff. She was here with us in 2022. She's back again. She facilitates everything that happens on Chosen Weekend and the Reveal Weekend to make sure that all of that is smooth and that everyone who wants to get chosen can get chosen and everything gets sent where it needs to sent on time for the choosing party. And then you have World Vision Zimbabwe staff. So there's World Vision Zimbabwe staff. Now, these are Zimbabweans who are a part of World Vision. These are not Americans who went to Zimbabwe and worked for World Vision. These are people who are on the ground every day working with these communities. And the most impactful person for me was our host. His name was they call him Bishop KK, Kilton Moya, and he was the World Vision Zimbabwe vision coordinator. So he was the guy that made sure that we got where we needed to be on time. He was the guy that was calling the shots, making things happen, make sure we were safe, protected, in the vehicles when we needed to get in the vehicles, on time, doing all the things. But the thing about KK, that's not him. Actually, I thought that might be who Asher would say was most impactful. But Kilton was the type of man, probably in his 60s. But everywhere that we went, everybody that he talked to seemed to be like he knew them forever. seemed to be like an old friend. We would roll up to like somewhere, drive 3.5 hours to the middle of nowhere and roll up to a school, and he'd be talking to someone and be like, oh, who is that? And he's like, well, I don't know, I just met them. Or we would be like we went to Victoria Falls and hike the falls, and we'd just be on a trail, and he'd be talking to someone and be like, oh man, who is that? And he's like, I don't know, I just met them. But everywhere that we went, this guy was not only creating relationship, but he was talking to people about Jesus. And it just inspired me to watch someone who was not only taking care of us and making sure that we were protected. In the midst of all of that, just the friendliest face, very structured, very organized, very blunt. He was very, very blunt in like, it's time to go, or no, we're not doing that, or, where's the food? But he was sharing Jesus with everyone that he met, making friends with everyone that he met, and I was just truly blessed by his leadership on the trip. What about you, Ash? Anything come to mind?
Well, when you had mentioned that guy, he was
Ronald.
Ronald, yes. He was in the car with us, and he was also the World Vision photographer. He was the guy running around taking all the pictures and videos. But he was in the car rides with us, and it was like when we were getting around, we'd be in the car for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, just getting different places. So being in the car, I'd just ask him a lot of questions about Zimbabwe and just the things I'd see outside my window. I guess it was inspiring in the sense that because of how knowledgeable he was about the company or the organization that he worked for, and his surroundings, where they were operating, it just was inspiring me to ask more questions to him, and also to myself, and to go find out things, or to dig deeper and research more about Zimbabwe, because I was there, and just to know my surroundings better. So yeah, that inspired me.
Yeah, he was a cool guy. Obviously local. I think he used to work for the UN, the United Nations, and just a really, really cool guy. You had a lot of questions as well, as any 18-year-old I'm sure would, being in a foreign country. But third question here: how did seeing World Vision's work firsthand deepen your understanding of its mission? That's kind of a long question, and so I'll answer it. Because, obviously, some of you guys know, some of you do not know, but my very, very good friend, Reward Sabanda, is how we got connected to World Vision. I don't know what he is now, but he's gotten so many promotions. He's a big dude over at World Vision in what he does, but he's from Zimbabwe, and I've always known about World Vision and their work. One of the things that's very, very impactful, and a lot of guys on the trip talked about it, but obviously World Vision is a massive organization, and 89% of every dollar that's given goes directly to kids, 11% to administration. That is higher than any other organization in the world. Humanitarian, non-humanitarian. Most organizations, they shoot for 40 to 50%, and World Vision has 11% overhead. 89 cents of every dollar goes directly to the kids. And one of the cool things on this trip, being a little bit extended, was we weren't so rushed. Last time we went in 2022, we left on Sunday after church. We were there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We got a plane on Friday, and we were back on Saturday, and we were at church on Sunday like zombies. And it was difficult. It was crunched. This time was a little bit extended, so I felt like I was able to really engage more with what was going on, to really look at my surroundings, to be able to hear the stories and really process in real time. And, one of the things that I love about what World Vision does is that everything that they do starts with child sponsorship, but it leads to so much more. There was a family that we visited with. We went to this village, and if I don't know how many of you guys have been to Africa, but the concept of a village is like very different from American society. You literally turn down a dirt road and you are driving like onto a property where that is their houses, and you're like, where's the AC? There is none. They actually sleep outside at night because it's so hot. They only use the house for storage and for eating meals or whatever. But you roll in, and then you can see there's other people who are part of that village. They live over there, and then other people, they live over there, and then over there there's another village. And so you roll into this village, and we met with this family who was impacted by World Vision's empowered worldview. And so not only do they have sponsorship, but because these kids are coming into the sponsorship programs, their families have access to these other programs that World Vision does. And one of them is called Empowered Worldview. And it's where they bring in, it's usually the wives, because the men are too prideful to actually show up. They bring in the wives and they teach them that poverty is a mentality that can be broken when you just start to think differently about the world. And so they give them opportunity to create ideas with what they have. They use the scripture of the woman with the jars of oil. And the prophet said to her, "What do you have in your house?" Like, what do you currently have? World Vision doesn't give them anything. They say, raise $5, and with that $5, create something that can bless not only your family, but your community. And so one of the things to answer that question as we went in to see World Vision's greater work is that we roll into a village where there are kids who are being sponsored, but in 6 months, the parents had dug a second well, which they were 72 feet down. 2 guys, it took them 2 weeks. They dug down 72 feet. It was a second well. This well was what they used to feed other households in their village, but also a garden, which they had planted to help pay for the school fees for others in their village. And then they used the proceeds from that to start building a fish pond where they could commercially raise fish. And within a matter of 6 months, a family who had no vision for the future, that's the garden right there that they had built. That's one of the women, that's one of the wives, that's the other wife over there. That's Kilton right there in the orange chosen shirt. And that's Ronald right there, actually, everybody that we've talked about so far. But the cool thing is that child sponsorship is the gateway to all of it. You're like, what can we do? Man, World Vision has it covered. They are making impacts in communities. They are making impacts for generations, but it all begins when we say yes to child sponsorship. That $39 a month that we're sending every month, not only is it allowing that kid to have access to health care, to schooling, to everything that they need, it is also impacting the community in such a way that the adults have opportunity to be a part of these programs that are creating jobs, that are creating income, that are blessing entire villages. And so I was just really, really impressed with World Vision's work firsthand, getting to see it right up and meet families that were affected by it. Anything you want to share on that?
Yeah, and I think one of the coolest things for me as a part of the way that they teach the people in Zimbabwe is how it's also taught to spread their knowledge to their surrounding community, and it's really community centered, of like building a strong community. And I thought that was I thought that was a cool way to go about it, how it's not just like, this is what you can do for you and your family. This is what you can do for yourself. It's like, these are the steps you can take to build a stronger community in the whole of where you are. And it's not just, for you.
Yeah, that's one of the things I loved is that they train leaders to train leaders. So everything that they learn, they are charged with. Now, you're taking this to your community. And so World Vision might be there 10, 15 years, but long after World Vision is gone, the work is going to continue because they have trained up leaders and they've passed it down and they've empowered people to think differently and train differently. And so question number 4 here, what surprised you the most about life in Zimbabwe or the people that you encountered? What surprised you the most about life in Zimbabwe or the people you encountered?
For surprised, there was something that kind of would like open my eyes. Would that have kind of been like along lines of surprise? If
Sure.
I could go back? Like it kind of just opened my eyes and got me to think about things differently. Is whenever we were able to attend that church service.
Yeah.
On that Sunday in Zimbabwe, it kind of was just really impactful for me because I didn't know what to expect. All I knew is that we were going to go to a church on Sunday, but being there and this was like deep into the trip, so we had already like been in the heart of Zimbabwe, like deep in Zimbabwe, seeing how life really is there for the people at the very bottom. So having that like background knowledge of the conditions of there, to come to this church service and see how joyful everyone there was and how united they all were, and how just like in the musicians that were playing the worship music, how much of their heart and soul they were just giving with what they had. And what they had at that church, compared, obviously, if we're going to compare to like, what we have here, or just like at the average church in America, obviously it's not going to be like of the same level technically, but what they did with it, you wouldn't even know. Like they were giving their all. And to like the guy that was playing piano, I noticed he didn't have a sustain pedal on his piano. And if you play piano, like if you don't have a sustain pedal, you usually can't get a piano to sound that great without one, because it's a pedal that like sustains the notes, makes it sound nice and like clean. But I wouldn't have even noticed. He was playing so well, and it was just cool. I say it to say, given what they had there, just their love for God is just what got them, is the one thing that stayed at the top of everyone's minds and was there guiding the whole thing, and everyone was just joyful, like giving their all despite, what conditions they might have been living in. Like just a strong community united under one love is stronger than any life circumstance, really. Yeah. Like you could see that they had just like, obviously it just wasn't on their minds even. They were just there in that moment. And yeah, that was just like, it got me to think about like life here and how that can still apply to like my life, like, and how that can, and how that principle doesn't change of like, when you have like a strong faith in God, like that's what really, I guess, is stronger than anything else. Yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we were the only ones who drove to service that day. Everyone else walked. We were the only ones that, in that service that, let me just show you. Can we think that we have church, right? We think that that we show up and we have worship, but let me just show you. It's that last video that I sent y'all should be wedged in there. It's the church singing. Notice there's no air conditioning. There's no lights. There's no smoke. It's just people worshiping. That was the first worship song. And about 50 more people showed up. Worship went for about 50 minutes, 50 minutes. And it culminated with a song that essentially everyone ended up in the middle. So everyone would have ended up on the stage if we did it here. And the song was "Come Lambs, for the lion," or the lion is roaring. It's essentially like you need to come and dance and be thankful, little lambs, because the devil, the lion, is out there and he's going to attack you if you don't come up here and dance. Essentially is what it translated. But yeah, just the joy to be able to worship was really, really impactful.
Yeah, and it did not feel like 50 minutes.
Yeah, no, it didn't. It was cool. Number 5, how did the Chosen event resonate with the community, and what was the reaction of the children who participated? Well, I think I answered that a little bit. I mean, every child that participated, you could just tell. The really, really cool thing, I don't know if do we have some of those, the videos of the kids like standing at the choosing? So you can imagine, like, if this is a tent and they've got all of the faces kind of lined up there. There is the Longs, there's Glenn, there's Chris and Reagan, there's Jonathan. I can't tell who that is. That Jen? No, that's not Jen. I can't tell. Dustin and Rachel? Is that them? Oh, okay, cool. There we had a huge family over there. But the really, really cool thing is that they have a red carpet that leads to the tent, and all the families are watching. All the rest of the kids are sitting there, and they call the kid's name, and the kid gets to walk down the red carpet, and they walk up to this tent, and there's nobody saying, okay, 5, 10 seconds, go, hurry, let's go. They give them as long as they want to stand there and scan across and then make a choice. And I can't tell you how impactful it is to be able to sit there and to watch a child choose. To watch a child get to look at a face and go, man, see, there you go, little girl. She just gets to stand there as long as she wants to stand there and choose. And I think, to answer the question, you can see it. You can see it in the kids' faces. And I think, like Asher mentioned earlier, obviously we got to be there to meet that child and the interaction that Asher had. I mean, my first moment was when I had gifts, and obviously it's a little girl. Her name is Michaela. Asher mentioned her mom called her Mickey. Her middle name is Brenda. Mickey Brenda is what they call her, and Brenda fits right in with my family, as you know, and also our other sponsor kid. His name is Brian, so I choose to call her Brenda. We got Brandon, Brent, Brian, Bronson, Brian, and Brenda. Yeah, when we pulled out the gifts and I pulled out a Disney princess coloring book, and I was like, "Do you like it?" And she goes, and that's all I needed. It's all I needed in that moment. But yeah, and I think for you guys, you're like, well, we didn't get to go. We didn't get to meet. You can. When you go into World Vision and where you write your letters to your children, they actually have plan a trip. And you can plan a trip and they'll arrange it for you to meet your kid in country. They'll do all of that for you. But more realistically, when you send them letters, right? When you send your child a birthday gift, you can send a birthday gift. When you send them a Christmas gift, it's all set up. It's all easy to do. But that creates the relationship where the walls get broken down, where true relationship can happen. We've watched our kid, Brian, over the last 4 years grow up, from a 9-year-old to a 13-year-old. And through the letters and through the conversation and the pictures that I send him of my kids, he now writes me back and he's like, "Oh my gosh, your kids are so big now." And I'm like, "You're like a little human. What's going on here?" But it's cool to see how that relationship happens, and you guys get to be a part of that. Question number 6. Ash, how has the trip influenced your faith and your view of God's work globally? I'll let you, if you want to answer that. I can answer it.
Yeah. I'd honestly just start to, how does the trip influence your faith and view of God's work globally? Honestly, just going back to what I had talked about, being there at the church service, just, I guess, overall, just this, I think this trip made me realize that, like, despite how, I guess, just that love and community is really just what overpowers, any sort of, I guess, what would the word be? Any sort of life circumstance or any sort of oppression that you can face from the people, like, at the very top, I guess, which is just like, but like, I just, being at that church service and seeing the power that unity had and just that one shared love towards God had, and how it seemed to just wipe clean everyone's worries and everyone's, whatever they brought in before they were in there in that moment, praising God. Just to see that that's really what the real power is right there, stronger than anything that's of this world. And I know that's kind of obvious, but like, just to see it right there in Zimbabwe, where it's like obviously 10 times worse than any sort of thing that we could be facing here as Americans in our circumstance. It's just like, I think it really just hammered that point in, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so good, because I think for me, like, when you look at the world and you go like, yeah, there's problems all over the world, right? But what can I do? I'm only one person. We're only one family. I don't have it all. I can't solve all the problems. But what I saw as I looked in the faces of families and kids across the world is that God sees every person where they are, in their circumstance, in their situation, and He has a way. He is providing a way for His hand to touch every life. And you think about it, the kids in those church service, like they don't know what it is to be in a kid service like this with air condition. They have no concept, no clue. They are experiencing what they're experiencing, and they are so happy, and they are so joyful. And the kids at school, like you go into those, we went into some of the schools, which was really, really cool. I mean, you can show one of those videos of the kids in the classroom singing, which is really cool because this is like the early childcare, pre-K age kids, and Zimbabwe is like it's a openly Christian nation. So these are public schools that World Vision partners with, and they can come in and provide programming and build classrooms and all sorts of different things. But I think the really cool thing is that those kids, in those classrooms, they have no idea what an American classroom looks like. But they are just so happy and so joyful. Do we have volume? No? So all of those are teachers, those are students. They're teaching them. They say, when I'm learning, I want to shine. That's what they were saying. When I'm learning, I want to shine. When people see me, they see my Jesus. Oh, my Lord, I want to shine. It's a public school, right? And so World Vision can partner with these schools, and they can go in, and they're teaching Jesus, but they're meeting a need. They're providing, so much. And so, yeah, for me, it's just God sees the need across the globe, and he provides opportunity for you and me who are blessed beyond measure. I learned this. The average Zimbabwean survives on the medium income is $1.50 a day. I don't know if you can do the math, but that's not very much on a yearly basis. We are blessed beyond measure. And when we can say, you know what? I waste, I was looking, Judah, if you're watching, he's sick. Laura's at home with him this morning because he was up all night throwing up. Probably because the amount of money he spends on Xbox. But I was looking at it. Last month, we could have sponsored 2 extra kids on what that kid spent on V-Bucks on Fortnite. But we're so blessed. God has blessed us in such a way. His word says that the world of the generous grows larger and larger, while the world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. Those who refresh others themselves will be refreshed. In other words, we cannot. Why do you keep saying yes to World Vision? Because you cannot outgive God. We can't. We can't. And if you want your world to get larger and larger, you better learn how to be generous for every opportunity, whether it's here, across the globe. And so that's what really impacted me, was to see that God sees every child, he sees every family, and whether we know it or not, he is using people, organizations to touch their life, to make it better, but ultimately to reveal himself to his creation. And so it's so powerful. Asher, question is specifically for you. I hope you've been reading it on the back screen and preparing. But it says, how did this experience shape your perspective as someone who's young in the church? In other words, other 18-year-olds, they weren't able, probably have not been to Africa or, kind of any third world country. But for you, how did the experience kind of shape your perspective as, someone who's young and still forming kind of your ideas and thoughts about life and about the world?
To be honest, I could answer young. I don't know specifically young adult in the church. Yeah. That side of things, but I have to think about how to word things. I think being there in a country, and being in Zimbabwe and seeing and experiencing some of the things that I had seen, it provided me with just a perspective on just kind of because it gave me this perspective of as I am 18 and I'm starting to grow towards more and more starting to go out on a path that's not the one, or not path, but kind of, I guess, growing outside of, eventually I'm going to be going outside of my household, going to have to find something to sustain.
Adulting.
Adulting, yes. Basically, yes. To put into one simple word. But, I think it just provides, oftentimes when you're on that path of adulting, you can kind of think that, there are things that are stacked against you, or that there are, things that are beyond your control that aren't fair, or that there's odds that just aren't fair. But I think being there and seeing a different life outside of this American bubble that I was in, because of course you hear about other countries, and you hear about anytime I wouldn't finish food on my plate, just getting there's kids in Africa, finish your food, but and you're oh, you're right, yeah, I will finish. But now that I've actually, been in Africa and I've seen it, I'm I will finish this food on my plate, yes. But it kind of just popped to that American bubble of mine of like, you know, the odds could be like so much worse. But like, as you were saying, obviously it's not like the American way is like the right way. Like, cause like you had said with those kids in that classroom, like they don't know like that there are odds against them or anything. Cause they're in the same way I'm in my American bubble, they're in their bubble. But to have my bubble kind of popped, it just gave me a different perspective on my life of like, you know what, I do have a lot of privilege just by living in the land that I'm living in. And it's not just like, what can I do with that privilege for me? What can I do with that privilege I have for others to actually, you know,
Yeah, that's a great perspective.
start, yeah. But, yeah, but what can I do with that privilege to help change others change others' lives positively who don't have that same privilege, you know?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, I think, obviously, like, going to a country where poverty is real, right? Like, literally, you drive down some streets and you'll see a 2 or 3 year old just walking down the street, down a highway, on the median, and you're just like, what in the world? Like, to you, that's just like unacceptable. When you see that with you're just like, how can that be? It's normal. It's normal there. But to see that firsthand, right? Obviously it's not easy. We had conversations on the trip of just like, man, experiencing this firsthand. But knowing that the tangible thing, which is question 8, is what are some tangible ways our church can support? We're already doing it, right? The most tangible thing that we can do is create a relationship with a kid and then to support them, because that supports their entire village, their entire community, and that's the most tangible way. Like we got some questions. It's like, when can we all go? When can we all go and do the work? It's like, no, World Vision's got that covered. They do a very, very good job from start to finish, from birth to adult, from adult to. They do an amazing job at bringing impact and change to those communities. All we have to do on our end is support our kids, to create that relationship with them. I'll tell you, I send our kid I think you can do it twice a year, but usually around their birthday and around Christmas, I'll send $100 or $200. And our first family we sponsored 4 years ago, over the past 4 years, they've bought a bunch of goats, and now they actually breed goats, and now they actually sell goats to their community, which is pretty cool. And they've become self-sustaining, all because of essentially a small gift, like nothing to us. $100 is nothing to us. But create that relationship. Invest in those families. That's the most tangible way that you can support what World Vision is doing. I think, I think for me, to kind of wrap up what we're doing here today is just, we had a goal, really a tangible goal. It was our 3rd time doing Chosen, and our real tangible goal was 80. We wanted to sponsor 80 kids. We ended up doing, I think, 55. I think was our number, right? When it was all said and done. And so, for me, I said, you know what? I think we can handle 25 more. And so I prayed about it. And if you're online or you're watching today, or maybe last week you were just like, I don't know about this, or just kind of questioning, or maybe you weren't here and you're like, oh man, I wish I could have been a part. You can. Lucky for you. You have that opportunity to do that today, to join in. There are, I think there was 386 kids left in our village that still needed sponsorship. Somewhere around there, they were telling us the number. Between our church and the other church that sponsored, the other church did 57. If you do the math, that is 112, I believe. And so there's still kids left to be sponsored in that village to get it fully sponsored. And so we're going to provide that opportunity. But the first thing that I want to do is I want to invite my girls up. Bella and Mia. Y'all come up here. Asher and I, we already met. We already met our girl. And you guys kind of got the beans spilled to you early. But outside in the lobby, you'll notice when you leave here, if you sponsor, there is an envelope with your name on it. Inside this envelope is a picture of the child who chose you. It's a picture of the child that I watched walk up, scan there, and go, I choose you. And so I'm going to let our girls this morning open our envelope so they can get a look at, go ahead, you can open it. So in there, you will get a picture just like that of your sponsored child holding your picture. And then there's also a station where you can today write your kid a letter right now. You can say anything. Hey, I just got your picture. You are so beautiful. Whatever you want to say to that child today in this moment. It'll have your child's name right at the bottom there. See, it says Brenda. Child's first name, Brenda Kayla. You can watch God do what he does and kind of just giving you that wink, that nod, saying, good on you, my child. Thank you for being obedient. Thank you for being generous. Thank you for reaching across the Atlantic Ocean and touching a child's life. I can tell you firsthand that it is absolutely incredible what World Vision is doing in those communities. It is changing generations. It is impacting lives. And it's all through a simple yes. When someone like you and me says, yes, Lord. We can sing songs all day long. Yes, Lord, I say yes. Here am I, send me, Lord. Well, you don't have to get on a plane and be sent. You can get on a phone and digitally send, and it's touching lives. And so if you are one of those people that you didn't get an opportunity to do it, or God's just like, hey, I want you to. Join in. You can scan there, or you can scan outside, or you can text, I believe, as well, and jump on. You can be one of those 25 extra people this morning that helps us hit our final goal. I don't think it's too much to ask. I don't think it's too big for us, those watching online as well. But I'm just going to pray right now. And I just want to thank all of you. I want to thank all of you rebels over the years who have sponsored, because it's made a lasting impression. And I know that one day when we stand before God and we walk through the gates of heaven, there's going to be kids there. There's going to be families there that you don't know. They're going to say, man, I'm here because you played a hand in me getting here and me knowing Jesus. You played a hand. So I just want to pray right now as we close service. Father God, I just thank you for who you are, God, for what you are doing, God, for what you have already done. Lord, what you did on the cross, as we remembered this morning, was enough. If you never did another thing, you've already done enough, God. But I just thank you for each and every rebel in the house, God, who has been generous to go over and above, to make extra room within their budget to say, God, I can create a relationship with a child, knowing that it impacts not just them, but entire communities. So, Lord, I just pray that you would continue to bless each person who has made the choice to be generous, God. God, I pray that as they create relationships over these next few years, God, that it would go beyond just, I'm helping you get what you need, but it would become a friendship, a relationship that means so much more. As the gospel is shared, as life is shared, Lord, I just thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for connecting Rebel Church with the community in Zimbabwe to do even more and greater things that we could ever do on our own and by ourselves. God, I thank you for every person that's going to be stepping into being chosen this morning. Didn't get the opportunity to do it, but they're saying, I'm going to do it now. I thank you for each and every person that's going to do that right now. Because I know, Lord, that ultimately we are building the kingdom. And we want to build the kingdom big and build the kingdom wide. Because as we build the kingdom, we populate heaven and we snatch people from the grips of the enemy. And that's a good work to be doing in Jesus' name. And all the church said, amen, amen, amen.